In the previous panel, we justified the preamble on the basis that it establishes that the mitzvah of Pidyon Haben by default belongs to the father. One of the 2 points mentioned in the preamble was that the father makes the bracha SheHecheyanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al Pidyon Haben, and it was noted that had the father been a mere shliach for the child, as is the shita of the Rishalmi, the issue presented to Rav Simlai would have been a non-issue. Clearly the Kohen would make the bracha of SheHecheyanu, not the father, as he, a mere shliach, cannot make this bracha. This point is reflected in a halacha of the Rambam, Yad HaChazaka Hilchot Brachot, Perek Yud Aleph, where the Rambam writes, Echad ha'oseh mitzvah la'atzmo, ve'echad ha'oseh ota la'acherim. Whether one makes the bracha for one's self, in other words, for a mitzvah that one is obligated to personally perform, or whether the act is done on behalf of somebody else, mevarech kodam asiyata, SheHecheyanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asot, etc., etc. The bracha over the mitzvah is to be recited prior to the performance of the mitzvah. The Rambam then goes on to write, Aval einu mevarech SheHecheyanu, ela al mitzvah she'oseh ota la'atzmo. If a bracha of SheHecheyanu is required, then that bracha can only be said for one performing a mitzvah for which one is personally obligated. Hence, if the core mitzvah rests with the child, the father merely acting as the child's shaliach, the bracha of SheHecheyanu would not be recited. Therefore, when the Gemara in the concluding segment of Masechet Pesachim presents a situation in which Rabbi Simlar was asked whether the Kohen or the father should recite the SheHecheyanu bracha, by implication, we must accept that the Avi Haben, the father, if he is to make the bracha of SheHecheyanu, does so on account of the fact that he is personally obligated to fulfill this mitzvah. What remains unanswered, however, is why from the very outset is there an issue? Why could not both the Kohen and the father make the bracha of SheHecheyanu, the Kohen because of the Hana'ah, the 5 slaim that he receives, and the father on account of the fact that he is fulfilling a mitzvah? And for this we will need to fine-tune the reason as to why the Kohen may also have a right to make BIRCHAT SheHecheyanu. But first, a slight digression to a position regarding SheHecheyanu presented by the TUR Shulchan Aruch. The earliest form of the Shulchan Aruch as we know it surfaced in the 1500s. Rabbi Yosef Karo in his Sefer the Bet Yosef recorded the basically Sephardic halachic minhagim, and where appropriate the Ramor Rav Moshe Isserles appended the Ashkenazic traditions. Precursor to the Bet Yosef was the Arba Turim, Rav Yaakov ben Asher, otherwise known as the TUR. One of the major commentators to the TUR Shulchan Aruch was the Bet Yosef. In Siman Reish Chaf Gimel, the TUR discusses the halachot regarding BIRCHAT SheHecheyanu. This is part of a series of halachot relating to the special brachot that one recites on events that take place throughout one's life. With respect to items that one receives by way of gift or that one is able to afford, such as clothing, utensils, etc., the TUR quotes the Tosfot that she'ein levarach ela al dvarim chashuvim, that the bracha of SheHecheyanu is limited to the acquisition of objects, of items that are deemed to be dvarim chashuvim, something exceptional, something special, something that one treats with special care. Dumya debana bayit chadash, items that would be in the category of the acquisition of a new house, something that is generally out of the ordinary. Aval davar she'einu chashuv kol kach, whereas items that are not that chashuv, they may express appreciation and thankfulness, kagon, for example, chalok or minalayim van pilaot, what today would be classified as a shirt, new shoes, an overcoat, ein levarach alav, one need not recite the bracha of SheHecheyanu. However, writes the TUR, quoting from his father the ROSH, that yirali shehakol hu lefi ma shehu Adam, the evaluation as to what is deemed to be a davar chashuv or not is subjective. It relates to the status of the individual. According to one's economic outlook possibly. Yesh ani, for example, there could be somebody who is not wealthy, quite poor, shesamach b'chalukah yota mi'ashir, who upon receiving a new shirt would express a greater degree of joy and satisfaction than obviously somebody who is quite well off. And therefore, there is no objective scale as to what is deemed to be a davar chashuv. It all relates to the item and the economic status of that individual. As such, one would be hard-pressed to justify the recitation of the SheHecheyanu by the Kohen. Certainly, receiving 5 slaim, not a great amount of money, would not meet the test of davar chashuv, which brings us back to our original question regarding the incident with Rab Simlai. If there's a requirement that SheHecheyanu is recited when one receives a hana'ah, a benefit, that is davar chashuv, certainly there would be no reason for the Kohen to make the bracha. Hence, why from the very outset is there an issue as to who makes the bracha of SheHecheyanu? And furthermore, why did not Rab Simlai simply respond that the father makes the bracha, rather than lo hava bidei? After thinking the matter through, he was not able to offer a response, and needed to bring the matter to the Bet Medrash for a resolution.